बैग में
हाँ मेरे को बुलाना है बाहर, चलिए ना वो कह रही थी जाने क्या करना है।
तो इधर तो करना है ना। हेलो टेस्टिंग एनी सेशन। आ रहा हूँ आ रहा हूँ।
Sujal, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, to me you are audible.
Okay, sir. So kindly give me a heads up when we are ready to start.
I'm ready. Have others joined?
Hi, Mr. Sood.
Hello, Dr. Shana. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It must be afternoon for you there.
It is. It's 1:30.
1:30. Okay. I think we are waiting for Ajay and Mayank.
Hi, sir. Good morning. Hello, I am audible.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Good morning to all. Mayank sir will join at 11:15.
Are we ready to start? Has Mr. Ajay joined? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Sir, I
Yes.
guess the BSF handle is Mr. Ajay.
Say again.
The BSF handle, the TC and S BSF HS.
You were not audible. पता नहीं लगा क्या बोला.
Sir, I'm trying to say is that TC and S BSF HZB handle is I guess Mr. Ajay Singh.
No, 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 no. That is our training institution at Hazaribagh.
Okay, okay.
आप फोन बात करें? हाँ जी, हाँ जी। मैं अभी एक मीटिंग और तो मैं आपको करूँ हर एक चीज समझी फिर अपन इसका अकाउंट रिक्रिएट कर लेते हैं सारा। ठीक, थैंक यू।
तो कह रहे हैं ऑनलाइन कहाँ दिख रहे हैं? कौन? यहाँ पे सर।
यही
ये
होगा।
नहीं है मना कर रहे हैं ना?
Anuradha, do you have Mr. Ajay's number?
I'm afraid I don't have, sir.
Okay, let me try. Let me try his number.
Sir, he has joined.
Good morning, everyone. Ajay Singh here.
Good morning,
Good morning,
sir.
sir.
Sood sir and Ruchi ma'am, should I go ahead with the welcome address? Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and esteemed participants, a very warm welcome to all of you to this timely and significant webinar on the topic Addressing Threats from India's Eastern Borders and Regional Cooperation. Today we gather here to delve into crucial discussions surrounding the challenges faced by India along its eastern borders and explore avenues for regional cooperation to address these threats effectively. India's eastern borders, particularly with neighboring countries like Myanmar, Bangladesh, have been witness to diverse geopolitical, security, and socio-economic dynamics. The need for a comprehensive understanding of these challenges and fostering regional cooperation has never been more imperative. Today, we are honored to have a distinguished panel of speakers who bring with them a wealth of knowledge and expertise in the realm of border security, intelligence, international relations, and academia. Firstly, let me have the privilege to introduce our very own Mr. Sanjeev Krishan Sood sir, the esteemed Director General of Borderman. He's a distinguished retired Additional Director General of the Border Security Force with an illustrious career spanning over 38 years. During this period of dedicated service, he has patrolled along the entirety of India's borders with Pakistan and Bangladesh. He spent 8 years on the line of control and in the sensitive Samba sector of Jammu and Kashmir, demonstrating his expertise in managing challenging and critical areas. His passion for understanding the intricate interplay of politics and security is complemented by a distinctive sense of humor that adds a unique dimension to his persona. In addition to his on field contributions, Mr. Sood has shared his wealth of knowledge through the written word. An accomplished author, he has penned a book and contributed several chapters on the nuanced subject of border security. He's also a familiar face on mainstream news channels, where he serves as a regular participant in television debates. His articulate and informed perspectives make him a sought after voice, adding value to public discussions on vital issues. Sood sir, could I kindly request you to share your valuable insights on the topic and set the stage for the conversation? Thank you.
Thank you, Anuradha, for that very kind introduction. Before I touch upon the theme of the topic, I would like to say a couple of sentences about our distinguished panelists while leaving the detailed introduction to you later on when they have their turn to speak. See, firstly, Dr. Shahana Ghosh, good afternoon and welcome to the webinar. I have known her now for the last couple of years, and her insights into the problems related to bordermen, the retired bordermen, and also about the intricacies of what happens along the borders has been well chronicled in her latest book called A Thousand Tiny Cuts, Mobility and Security Across India-Bangladesh Border. She is presently teaching at Singapore University, and I'm sure that we'll all be benefited by her insights into her detailed studies along the Indo-Bangladesh border and thereabout. Ajay has been a dear colleague. We have almost had parallel careers in our service. I've always found him to be a very forward-thinking officer who applies his knowledge and experience to bring about improvements in the border guarding and border management spheres. Mayank isn't here presently. He'll join us later. He's a defense journalist of over 20 years standing and presently working with the New Indian Express. He's an expert on China border, having toured all along the India-China border in its entirety. we would be benefited by his experience that he has, what he has seen along the China border. Now the topic as listed is addressing threats from eastern borders and regional cooperation. As we all know, we have a very long border, more than 4,000 kilometers of borders with Bangladesh on the east, besides about 1,600 kilometers of borders with Myanmar. While our problems with Bangladesh border have more or less been resolved, except for a couple of ticklish issues like the Teesta water treaty and all. However, the problems remain. Problems remain because of the ethnic and familial bonds that are there across the border. In spite of the fence having come up along this border, the mobility across the border hasn't really stopped because of the close family bonds between the people residing on both sides of the border, and also because of the population residing very close to the border. Nature of crime along these borders creates a problem both for the border men and also for the civilians, leading to a lot of violence, which leads to allegations of human rights violation, besides a very, very bad press in Bangladesh. Uh, in regard to Myanmar border, the present situation in Manipur is extremely worrisome. Even though the strife in Manipur is internally driven and internally sustained, the element of foreign interference or foreign support or illegal people coming from Myanmar and fueling the problem in Myanmar cannot be ruled out. Uh, as we know, the Myanmar is a drug hub, and a lot of drug comes in from there, which fuels insurgency in these areas, which has been fueling insurgencies in the past and also probably fueling the present strife to an extent. There have also been allegations of weapons being smuggled in from Myanmar. The recent announcement by the Home Minister about uh, doing away with the free movement regime and also fencing the border is also required to be considered in detail as to what effect will it have on our relations with Myanmar, besides the effect on the fragile ecology of the border region. Not only that, the logistics issues that will crop up in trying to take up the humongous task of fencing this 1,600-kilometer long border, because presently there is no infrastructure available. There is no, and the terrain configuration in those areas is extremely difficult. The ecology is fragile. The ethnic bond between the tribes on both sides also will cause a lot of problem in construction of such a barrier. Another point to be considered is whether creating a barrier or ending the FMR is an overreaction. Can't there be other ways of managing these borders effectively? And lastly, the manner in which the borders are managed also affects our foreign relations with the neighboring countries. And therefore, keeping peace and tranquility on these borders is a prerequisite if we have to maintain better relations with these countries. And therefore, the regional cooperation is extremely important in these areas. Uh, with these words, I'll hand you back, Anuradha.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable insights. Before I move on to introducing this esteemed panelist, I would like to urge the participants to. I can hear my voice echo. Sorry, sir. Pardon. Hello. Am I audible?
You are audible.
So before I move on to introduce the esteemed panelist, I would urge the participants to engage actively and ask questions and share your thoughts and reflections after every speaker has made a presentation. So now I move on to introduce our first esteemed panelist, Mr. Ajay Singh, sir. He is an accomplished officer holding the rank of Inspector General, retired. He embarked on his journey with the Border Security Force after completing his post-graduation at Agra University in 1986. His dedicated service has taken him across diverse terrains from Punjab to Jammu and Kashmir, West Bengal to Rajasthan, and Manipur to Assam and Meghalaya. Having navigated insurgency-prone regions and terrorism-infested areas, Ajay Singh sir has not only safeguarded international borders with Pakistan and Bangladesh, but has also excelled in intelligence operations. His notable achievements include dismantling a spying network orchestrated by Pakistan's ISI in the sensitive district of Jaisalmer, as well as West Bengal. Sir's commitment to national security extends beyond borders. He had also served in the elite force, that is, National Security Guard, handling crucial assignments and responsibilities. Moreover, his international contributions include serving in the United Nations in Bosnia and Herzegovina as a member of the International Police Task Force. With a remarkable tenure, Ajay Singh sir has not only safeguarded the largest frontier of the BSF along the international border with West Bengal, but has also risen to the esteemed position of Inspector General, reflecting his exemplary leadership and dedication to duty. Ajay sir, the virtual stage is all yours. Kindly proceed, sir. Thank you.
Good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Good morning to everyone. Good morning, Sue sir. Thanks for introduction, Anuradha too. A lot of things have been told about me, about my services in the force. Nothing to add, but I would like to just inform all the participants that I was fortunate and lucky to serve long years in Northeast and commanding a battalion in Manipur for 3 years from 2004 to 7, and then again serving in various parts of the Assam and Meghalaya have given me a wonderful exposure of Northeast. And if I summarize, given a chance, I would like to take a birth next life in Northeast only. It's a beautiful place, wonderful people, and lovely to work there in terms of everything. So, exposure to serving in Bengal is already there. Lot many years I have served in my career in different ranks in Bengal, and later on graduated to Northeast in Assam, Dhubri, Meghalaya, and Manipur. What I feel that Northeast cannot be understood until unless we visit there. So I think we have to go to Northeast, and once you walk in Northeast, then only you come to know what are the intricacies and complications of Northeast are involved. Now, I always felt before visiting Northeast that Northeast is something very uh, place where people don't talk to, people don't mix up, language issues, food issues, and all. Being a typical North Indian mindset. Once after joining Border Security Force, once I visited Northeast, or you can say beyond Siliguri corridor, my ideas kept on getting changed, and I found that Northeast has the most beautiful culture, mix of colors, languages, tribals, hundred of tribal communities. Their living style is straightforward, less speak, more work, sturdy, hardworking people in Northeast. But unfortunately, the part of Northeast was always not integrated with our country since due to poor infrastructure or poor development. In fact, when I joined in '86, even our base used to be Guwahati or Siliguri for moving further in the northeast. So integration of the northeast is very slow. Infrastructure was totally missing over there. Roads were very poor, and lights. And there's no city in the villages or in the main town. On there was a lot of load shedding in the Imphal town, and Churachandpur is a small town of Manipur where I commanded a battalion. So slowly now, Northeast is coming on the main radar of the country, and of course, I joined in '86, and today in 2023, long leap has been taken in the areas of development. Insurgency is almost it is controlled. The main problem was in Mizoram, Nagaland, and Manipur. Basically, Nagaland and Mizoram insurgency was different type of insurgency, which was for the independence kind of a thing. But Manipur is a typical state where strife between communities is traditionally keep on going on there. Sometimes cookies, but you can say that Manipur and particularly hill district of the Manipur are ethnic jungles. Lot many tribes are living there in Churachandpur district, in Chandel, and other districts. And Manipur, their militant organization, their insurgent organization also are deadly organizations. I will not compare them with the NSCN, but they have got their own capabilities. And if you say that Myanmar Indo-Burma border was always not managed properly. It was free movement regime, what Sosar has said. So it was not considered very threatening or it's very dangerous place. So it was a free movement regime. People used to go here and there, and then uh, things started. Whenever there's a problem in Nagaland or Mizoram or in Manipur, if you need weapon, you need training, you need money, you can always walk to Myanmar, or Myanmar people can walk to India for anything. So there was always a line of communication open between Myanmar and India or Bangladesh or India due to border issues. So Northeast was always a area which was government thought that okay, it can be managed slowly. Their more focus was on the western border, Pakistan border. But after serving there, I found that that border to maintain, need to be managed, and secondly, we need to understand the culture, people of the Northeast. We should bring them closer to the mainland Indian mindset, and slowly things started happening. Uh, there was a time when you crossed the Guwahati, you were totally not having even, you want to have a tea with milk, you will not find it. Snacks was totally out of question. Food was totally different. Now, if you even go to remote corner of the Northeast, you will find good roads, good electricity, connectivity, internet, and then food. Every type of food is available. And a lot of Northeast people are now coming to India. Can you believe 98% border of Northeast is having a international border? 98% of the Northeast is having an international border. So all the 7 states are having an international border. Insurgency is totally on decline, no doubt. You barring this Manipur problem, which has erupted recently, then we need that bridge. The Northeast has to be utilized as a bridge between India and Southeast Asian nations. Now, this is most important thing. Until unless uh, Manipur, Nagaland, West Bengal and further beyond. These states have got immense potential, and we need to utilize this area as a bridge between mainland and North Southeast Asia. And for that, we need roads, we need inland waterway connectivity, which has improved a lot. You must be knowing through Brahmaputra River, a lot of inland waterways connectivity is coming up. Airlines. Now there was a time when only Air India used to fly between Imphal and Delhi or Guwahati and Delhi. And today you can go to Guwahati in the morning, come back late in the night. You can go to Mysore, Aizawl, Imphal, anywhere. When I joined there in 2004, there used to be only two flights, one Air India, one Jet Airways. So connectivity and train, broad gauge is totally there. Now meter gauge has been converted to broad gauge. So now we are reaching northeast very easily, and you will find that lot of northeast people also now started coming to Delhi for studies and for multiple type of jobs now. So one should not forget that Northeast has got its own strategic importance. China, Bhutan, Nepal, everybody is sitting all around, and then Myanmar. Now, in that keeping that thing in background, Northeast will always remain a strategically important place for India, but it was isolated, it was cut off. Now it is joined the mainstream. We are already there. We are utilizing their resources. We are going through the main good road. Now, the Asian Highway, which is going to connect India, Thailand, is already coming up in a very, very big way. I was commanding North Bengal frontier. The Asian Highway was passing through my headquarters only, through in front of my headquarters, and it is a big infrastructure, big thing. Now, before that, we need to secure our borders also, because economy, what the policy, look is policy and act is policy. There are two policy. Look is policy was started by Mr. Narasimha Rao long back, and act is policy is now the latest brainchild of present government. Now, what was the aim of Loki's policy? That we should have a 4C: culture, commerce, connectivity, and capacity building. These 4C were the most important thing of the Loki's policy. Then Government of India was having a concept of Sagar, security for all and growth for all. It was our own vision. Now, keeping in view this Sagar and the 4C, we needed to have a very good control on Northeast area, and then our aim was that northeastern states should have more interaction with their neighboring countries, like Manipur, Nagaland. They should have a more better understanding and more cooperation and more connection with these international countries which are just sitting Myanmar and other countries. Now, at the Act East policy, we need to improve the economy, we need to improve the infrastructure. Now, what is going to happen that we need to secure the borders. Now, what I found that even we are not able to sort out the issue of Tista water issue with Bangladesh. Now, what is the background of Tista water? Bangladesh wants 50% water of Tista river, which emanates from Sikkim, and we are not willing to give them 50% water. We want 55% water. Deal could not be signed, so that is the issue going on. Indo-Bhutan border has also got some issues in the Doklam area where China is also there. Then we have got small problems with Bangladesh also, like the Teen Biga corridor is already sorted out, but still there are open and porous border. So entire Northeast, including West Bengal, becomes very, very important in coming times when Bangladesh is now new regime has come, but in Burma things are going very bad. The Shan, in the Shan state, Arakan army has totally controlled the situation, and junta is facing real problem. 200 something troops landed in India recently in Mizoram. They escaped from Burma. So these type of things will keep on happening, but we have to see that how can we utilize Northeast and how can we exploit our international trade, commerce with the Southeast Asian nation through Northeast. Northeast is changing very fast. The economy is improving. Air connectivity, as I told, air connectivity, everything has increased in a big way. But still, there's a huge scope for improving the Northeast. So our population which are living in abject poverty in the border area can still further have a growth. But simultaneously, we cannot ignore the security of the border, because it is known fact that Pakistani ISI have got their modules comfortably sitting in Dhaka, sitting in Myanmar, and they are always keep on. China has also got its interest in the Burma, and it is a known fact that basically this Arakan army, which started the problem in Burma, was initiated by China only, because China wanted to control their certain people based in Burma who were indulging in cybercrime. So China army, China government encouraged Arakan army, supported them, and once this Arakan army has controlled the cybercrime people sitting in Burma, now they have gone into an accord with them. But still, this accord is very going to be slow, a very short life. So, keeping in view the problem in Burma, keeping in view the problem in Manipur state, Northeast has to be dealt now more. Can you believe that 22,000 crore rupees have been given to donor ministry since 2001? Now it's a very huge amount given by Government of India to Northeast for development. Now out of total 1900 projects were there. Now out of 1900, 1270 projects are already complete. And can you believe only 4% population of India lives in Northeast? So why it is so important? Because if you have to control this area, security of the area, then you have to strengthen the economic condition and then bring the business from the neighboring country through this state, which will bring prosperity and everything. Now, news thing is coming up in Burma border also, that fencing is coming up. And it is a known fact that Burma border is still being managed properly, because they are totally managing the Burma border on based of nodal defense. Like they are not sitting on the borders, they are sitting on the nodes. Assam rifle is sitting on the nodes, and border is open because FMR is there. But on the contrary, if you go to Bengal border, on every 2 to 2.5 kilometers, there is a border post. Bang on the zero line, just 150, 170, 180 meters away from the zero line. And fencing is there, red lights are there, cameras are there, radars are there. Still, the border is open and porous. But on the contrary, in the jungle terrain, in diluting mountainous terrain, if you are not sitting on border, even if you bring the fencing, even you bring the everything, the border will always remain open and porous. You cannot stop 100% movement. So, if you want to stop smuggling or crime on border, you have to make people economically stable. Unlike Bengal, where you go to more to the border area, the more people are poorer, very poorer, not literate, and it's a bad condition. I have served in 25 years back also in Bengal. The latest in Bengal, things have not improved too much in terms of poverty or literacy. But if you see holistically, Bengal border, then Assam border, Dhubri area, then further Tripura, then further Meghalaya, Burma border and all, entire Northeast is changing and changing very fast due to proactive policies of the Government of India. And simultaneously, now Burma border is being addressed in terms of fencing. The infrastructure is going to come, infrastructure is going to come there in Burma border also. Similarly, Manipur border will also probably will be fenced, and Mizoram border will also be probably fenced. So, keeping in view the development which are taking place, I feel that this area will become secure. Once it becomes secure, people will invest money, industries will come. Because if you go to Manipur, you will find not a single industry is there. In a Mizoram, there's no factories. There's no factories are there. Everything is produced there only for their local consumption. That's all. So industry scope is too much there. Then human resources. Generally, your Northeast people are very, very intelligent, hardworking, and they are very disciplined also. The whatever the task you give them, they will complete, and they love to live, enjoy. They love to enjoy their life. They live the life and talk less, work more. So there are a lot of potential in Northeast people, which I saw first-hand serving there, and if we utilize them, if we motivate them, I think Northeast is the most important part of the country, and you can say the unexploited potential of the Northeast waiting for us to develop infrastructure, move in, and then further use it as a bridge for further moving to Southeast Asian nations. And this is my point of view. If anybody has got any doubt or questions about anything they want to ask about Northeast, which I might have missed because I cannot cover Northeast in 30 minutes or 40 minutes, it's just free-flowing thought which I came to my mind. I express with you because Northeast is a vast area. I told you in earlier also that once you go there, live there, walk there, and then you will not understand what is Northeast. And Northeast is much more secure. Backup line is this, that now Northeast is much more integrated with the mainland, much more secure. If you walk on the roads of Delhi and ask people what is the capital of Mizoram or Manipur, people never you will not be able to tell you where is Imphal or where is Aizawl or where is Guwahati or Dimapur or Dibrugarh. Can you imagine that one Rajdhani train which is not connecting a state capital in India, that is Delhi, Dibrugarh, Rajdhani. Otherwise, generally you will find Rajdhanis are connecting capital to capital. So Northeast is a very, very important area and is coming up very fast and going to play important role in the security of the region and going to play important role in the economic scene of the region. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your extremely enriching words. We got to know a lot about the Northeast through your interesting perspectives. If anyone has any questions, any thoughts, any reflections about sir's presentation, you're most welcome to raise your hand. Please feel free to share your questions. You can raise your hand and switch on the microphone.
I saw a hand raised by one Anurag.
Yes, Anurag, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, sir. I have actually two questions. One is the issue of subnational governments that are being strengthened in Myanmar, in Kachin, Chin. So, like, there are as many governments as there are states in the Myanmar right now. So, how does that create complexities for us? And second thing is with the so these states have some special statuses within our constitutions. Under fifth schedule, the border states of Northeast. Then we have the issue of inner line permit. So how does that create complexities for us in attracting investments to these regions?
Okay, now first question you said about the Myanmar, that what are latest development happening there about this Arakan Army or Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army and Tang National Liberation Army and all these are small organizations. You know, this is a fact that military regime which came there and after that they were supported by China, but there was always hidden anger against the military junta for various crimes which they are committing or whatever the problem where they were causing in that area. Now, this in the Shan state, the entire system has been controlled by these rebels. And now slowly they are holding, increasing their area of dominance. And we have started feeling the heat that also, because now you saw that 200 something soldiers of Myanmar army escaped to India. in the Mizoram, and then they were taken and sent back in two groups, two parts to back to the Myanmar. So certainly the unrest which is happening in Burma is going to cause problem for India also in terms of only border area, where you will see lot of movement of refugees, lot of displaced people will come to India due to this problem. Now question is this, how we handle this situation. Are we going to utilize this situation by helping on a humanitarian aspect, helping these refugees coming, keeping them in our country for short duration, giving them every help, then in getting proactively in contact with the Myanmar government to win some good points from them. That is the only issue. Otherwise, India is not concerned with the internal issue. Certainly, China is trying to negotiate between these two groups, and now there's a thought the dispute has been resolved up to some extent. But in future, what will happen, nobody knows. But we are not going to affect it except the movement of the refugees. And this type of insurgency have taken place long back also in Burma. All the time, this junta loses area, loses track, then again they get back. This entire Shan state has been captured by rebels now. But I am very sure, like in history says, that in past also they have gone back and they have captured. So I don't see at the moment very big repercussion for India due to this dispute. Now, second question is inner line permit, which you said, then how it's going to impact. Now, that inner line permit is a very, very old idea. When there were issues of security, there were issues that nobody should be allowed to go in the northeast state, and it can be exploited by enemical country or enemical element. Now, with the change in time, this inner line permit is losing its value. Now, whatever information you want, it is available on computer, it is available through Google and all. And if you want development, if you want to bring infrastructure, you have to allow free movement. And once we are talking about Asian highway connectivity with Southeast Asian nations, then how can we talk about inner line permit? So in my personal view, the inner line permit is going to go away, and it has gone from various parts of the Northeast. And industrial development will only come when there's a freedom of movement, there's a security and safety of the money which will be invested by various people for various development. So keeping in view all these things, inner line permit is going to be, in my opinion, going to go away. It will be a thing of past, and it will not impact as it is. A lot of development is taking place in Northeast, and it is not causing any problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any more questions? Okay. Next up on the agenda, we move on to our second esteemed panelist, Professor Sahana Ghosh, ma'am. She's a distinguished scholar, and she delves deep into the intricate realms of borders, mobility, agrarian societies, and gender and labor in South Asia. She's the author of 1,000 Tiny Cuts, Mobility and Security Across the Bangladesh-India Borderlands. She illuminates the lives and histories of people in the India-Bangladesh borderlands through numerous articles. Currently, her focus lies on researching the lived experiences of soldiering and transformations within the border security force. Dr. Ghosh teaches in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology at the prestigious National University of Singapore. Professor Ghosh, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuradha, for this very kind introduction. It's a real pleasure to be in this webinar with Mr. Singh and Mr. Sood. Mr. Singh, I've just recently crossed paths with during his last posting in North Bengal, from where he took retirement. And Mr. Sood, as he mentioned, ever since I reached out to him in 2019, in early 2019, so it's almost been 5 years now, to tell him about my interest in researching particular sort of the human experience of working in the BSF. He's been nothing but supportive. And I'm particularly pleased to join a panel like this because, it's something I have long wished existed. I think there are very, very, very few, and I'll just say this before I go into to my remarks, that, as I've been researching borders and borderlands for around 15 years now, and my focus has been the India-Bangladesh border, um, scholars like myself, the academic community, and the practitioners, people who are in the parts of the state, whether it's the SSB or the BSF or the Assam Rifles, or the Home Ministry, people, different parts of the state, there has been little to no interaction. And that's a real shame, because I think there is a lot to, our findings, our research, our deep, knowledge based on field research could be of immense, use, could inform policymakers, could inform institutions, and vice versa. I think a cooperative relationship between institutions of the state and scholars, it would, I have learned so much from, these years of interaction now with Mr. Sood, more recently with Mr. Singh, as I've been doing this work on the BSF. And so I'm really, really pleased that there is this kind of a space now for, an interaction, for sharing this kind of perspectives, because our perspectives are different, and that is what is productive. And especially for young scholars like all of you all, students in different universities, or journalists, or civil society actors, right? I think there is a lot to learn from this kind of exchange and difference in perspective. So with that, I'll jump into. I think I bring quite a different perspective, and helpfully so. I think that complements what Mr. Singh and Mr. Sood have said so far. And the my point of view will be to bring people back into this discussion a little bit, right? So and I speak from my experience, having conducted. I'm an anthropologist, so I've conducted long-term qualitative research in the borderlands of India and Bangladesh, living in both the Indian and Bangladesh sides of the border. So this, my book and numerous articles is based on that research. I've lived for over maybe I started doing this research in sort of 2010, 11, and then maybe by now, in bits and pieces, maybe I've lived in the border areas on both sides for a total of about 3 years. And so I speak from that kind of experience. And to begin with, the perspective I want to bring in and talk about a little bit is, rather than talk, all these very, very important issues of security, bilateral relations between India and Bangladesh, infrastructure development, well-being, right? So these, I want to touch on briefly on each of these, but from a very people's point of view, by which I mean that when you ask what is a threat, which is the title of, the term threat, right? Threats in the eastern border is in our title. It depends on who you ask. Okay, so if you, from the state's point of view, the discussion and this very rich, important macro level point of view that Mr. Sood and Mr. Singh have, having managed, an enormous for institution like the BSF at a large level, right? They have a bird's eye view. If you ask the company commander at a border outpost, at a BOP along the India-Bangladesh border, for example, right? What is your threat here? Their threat is going to be cattle smugglers. They're going to be worried about their soldiers potentially being attacked by cattle smugglers at night. If you ask, their threat is not immediately whether the Teesta River, the Teesta Treaty has been signed or not, is not that, is not there. The threat that they're having to deal with on a day-to-day basis. If you ask a soldier on patrol, what is your what does threat mean to you? How do you understand threat on the eastern border? For the soldier, there's going to be a long list of which you're going to find the weather, environmental issues, right? So, and Mr. Singh brought this up a little bit. So it's going to be mosquitoes in Tripura. It's going to be rains in West Bengal and Assam. It's going to be the fog, winter fog in Punjab and, well, let's talk about the eastern border in Bengal. He's going to point to the, the canal, the irrigation canal right outside the BOP and say that in the monsoon, this is monstrous. And he's going to tell you stories about, maybe 10 years ago that he's heard of, that 2 BSF Jawans died when they, in a chase, right? So threat is it depends on who you ask and at what scale. And this matters, bringing this lived experience in matters, because this hugely shapes the relations between the civilian populations of border areas and the face of the state, in the border areas, which is often the BSF, right? So the people are, people who live in border areas are daily, as, perhaps it's worth mentioning that the India-Bangladesh border, as has already been mentioned, is over 4,000 kilometers long. 2,000 of it half of it is just with the state of West Bengal, and a significant portion is also with Assam. These are densely populated agrarian areas. I think we need to, as Mr. Singh, I think so rightly said, if you want to understand these areas, if you're interested, you need to visit. And why do you need to visit? You need to visit in order to get a sense. We're not talking, policies made in Delhi or Dhaka are very difficult to understand unless you actually visit, until you get a sense of geography, until you get a sense of terrain, climate, and social cultural relations, right? So I want to, and this matters hugely because this shapes the kind of relationship that local border populations have with the face of the state, in this case, the BSF, right? So these are people, who are living with each other. So the borderlands, when I say I'm a scholar of borderlands, it's of course local populations, families, communities that have lived there for generations. But since, independence, and particularly since 65, and with increasing numbers, right? 65, when the BSF was raised from, I won't go into the history of that now, there was very sparse presence of a state policing infrastructure in the border areas. Okay, so this was very new to the lives of people who live in these areas in both India and Bangladesh, on both sides. This has really dramatically changed, as Mr. Singh said. The India-Bengal border is most of it is fenced, although there are significant areas that are not. And the density of the presence of the BSF on the Indian side, much less on the Bangladesh side, the BGB, but nonetheless they are present there and they live in these villages. So there's a great intimacy. People live in these densely populated agrarian areas with each other. Okay, so the kind of civil-military relations matters a lot for the ability of the BSF to do its work, B, the goodwill with which the state is present in the border areas, and thirdly, the this question of regional cooperation. So it's one thing for state officials, the prime ministers and the ministers, and the DGs to have official ceremonial visits. It's a very different thing when we're talking about people-to-people relations and we're talking about reputation. Right, and I think either Mr. Sood or Mr. Singh mentioned that the kind of relations that the BSF have with border populations, both the Indian border population and the Bangladeshi border population, is actually really important in the kind of reputation that Indian border security has in Bangladesh. And one of you mentioned earlier that is actually very, very poor. In every single poll, and just a very quick evidence of that is that every single kind of poll regarding the popularity of Prime Minister Hasina, for instance, one of the things that keeps coming up is criticism around Hasina, Prime Minister Hasina, not being able to stand up to Indian border security. What is publicly perceived, popularly perceived in Bangladesh as very unfair kind of relations, very unequal, unfair relations. So, I think civil-military relations and the lived experience of both BSF soldiers, BSF troops in border areas and their relations with border populations, I think really should be part of our conversation around what constitutes threat and therefore what constitutes security in borders when we talk about borders and borderlands. And I want to mention, I want to build on, I think these tie in very nicely with several points made by Mr. Singh, but again, I think what I want to say, I think adds to them and brings in a different kind of perspective. I want to make remarks about economy, about social ties, and I'll start with saying that, I really appreciate Mr. Singh's, kind of comparison between the India-Bangladesh and the India-Myanmar border by making this very important point that while at the India-Bangladesh border, infrastructurally, you may get the impression that we are doing very well. And indeed we are, right? We've built this fence. The target goal of there being a BOP, I think every 2.6 kilometers, I think if I'm not mistaken, is nearly achieved. Barracks are being built, BOPs are being built, newly more and more raised troops are being deployed. So it looks like the infrastructure and state presence, state capacity in terms of border security is excellent. It's going floodlights, cameras, right? New technologies. But I think Mr. Singh made a very important point, which I think we should think very carefully about, is that good infrastructure does not equal welfare. Okay? Good infrastructure does not equal good socioeconomic development of border areas. Okay? If you continue to have infrastructure, but the civil-military relations are poor, that infrastructure or that state presence is not only doing nothing for socioeconomic development, perhaps it is actually part of the problem of socioeconomic development, right? Then I think we have a real problem that we are not recognizing that we need to address. And I'll give you examples of this, okay? So this is something that I very carefully traced in my research literally from partition to the present, okay? I've been interested in tracing and identifying, in very careful ways, what has been the impact of fencing, what has been the impact of, what has changed from the kind of sparse presence of initially state police, then BSF, then the War of 71, onwards, right? Over the decades, the changing nature, nature of border security, what socioeconomic effects has it had on border populations? And I'll give you few examples to make this very clear. One, land. So, and now we're talking about the relationship between border security infrastructure and socioeconomic development, okay? So, land. From the point of view of the security state, land in border areas matters because we need to acquire land in order to build fences. Now, wherever we build a fence, wherever we build a border outpost, the price of land, and remember I've mentioned these are all densely populated agrarian areas. There's a huge pressure on land. This is true of both India and Bangladesh. What I'm saying is mostly true about India because this kind of infrastructure development has not been as rapid and as intense on the Bangladesh side. But many of these observations I'm making about socioeconomic impact are actually true of both sides, both India and Bangladesh. So the prices of land, agrarian land, around all the areas where there are fences, where there are BOPs, even along the road where there are little parcels of land are being acquired to build a watchtower. Prices of agrarian land fall in those areas. Okay, so for the farmer, that land is if you think that the biggest capital asset a farmer has, even small marginal farmers, and that is what is the socioeconomic picture in these areas in West Bengal and Assam. They're all marginal farmers. They're all small landholders. Their biggest asset suffers economically, number one. Number two, border security brings, and while this might be make a lot of sense from the point of view of border security, right, of implementing, of soldiers, officers on the ground doing their work, restrictions on farming practices, restrictions on crops that can be grown, kind of surveillance or a kind of informal permission system on the transportation of goods, crops, materials, all add to the cost of farming and to the cost of economic activity in these border areas. Okay, and this is, one can do a very quick back of the envelope calculation, literally between kind of 20-30 kilometers from the border and 20-30 kilometers, the cost of doing the same activities 20-30 kilometers further in. Okay, so border security is introducing an economic cost to the lives of people who live in those areas, and this has been the case historically. Okay, now for the people who live there, who do they hold responsible for this? The soldiers they see patrolling, the officer they see, who they occasionally see as the company commander. That is for them, the in flesh and blood, the people they hold responsible. Now, of course, those are not the people responsible for doing them. They are enacting a much larger kind of policy. But that policy will, what I'm trying to say is that that policy itself opposes border security to welfare in a way. These are posed as oppositions to one another rather than as things that must be considered together to address and solve. We cannot have a border security policy whose implementation is to the detriment of the socioeconomic welfare of border populations. Okay, so this is, sort of just thinking in terms of land, and there's so many, I write about many examples of this kind of economic impact. We can think about markets. I know the region of North Bengal the best, but there are so many examples of very thriving, historically, they even featured in sort of British time colonial gazetteers as very important hearts and markets. Because of their proximity to the border and because of kind of restrictions, again, introducing, this is a simple kind of economic calc. When you increase costs, activities become less profitable. Several such markets, for instance, have really become very, poor versions of their former, what they used to be earlier, borderline areas. So rather than encouraging economic activity in border areas, we can see in very clear ways how over time the implementation of certain kind of, of a certain vision of border security has impacted, has harmed economic life in border areas. And this is very true on both the Indian and Bangladesh sides. Okay, and Mr. Singh is absolutely correct that on both sides, and this is so noticeable, like if you just look at like the level of education, high school dropouts, all of these rates in border blocks in India and in Bangladesh are many times higher than the state average, let's say in West Bengal, or the national average in Bangladesh. This is, there's just hard evidence to tell you about that. So that's sort of the economic aspect of it. I want to say a couple things quickly and then I'll wrap up, and I would love to have more of a conversation. I'll say a few things about social ties, because I think that also is very, very key. Doing the kind of research I've been doing, which is also very historical. It's been talking to families who've lived in these areas, for generations. We realize, I realize, I think that we have a very presentist view of things. And, I think it's very valuable to also have the perspective, have this conversation with people like Mr. Singh and Mr. Sood, who, as Mr. Singh said, that he served in West Bengal, has this 25-30 year span of seeing West Bengal posted earlier in his career and then later on. And so I think that kind of historical point of view is very important for us to understand what we expect to be kind of the changes we expect to happen like that are whether that's realistic or not. What do I mean by that? We should appreciate that across the India-Bangladesh border, and while it differs by region, there's a very particular way in which ethnic ties span across the India-Bangladesh border in the northeast, the India-Myanmar border. But in the Bengal borderlands, in West Bengal and Lower Assam, this border, it may seem like 47 was so long ago, but there was no the present kind of border security that we see, which is a infrastructurally, policy wise, a very hard, ceiling, right? Division, stopping, assumes that the norm is that there should be no movement, no crossing. That is so new. Okay, that is so. People can tell you, and people will tell you, people who live in all of these areas will tell you this, and they will tell you in terms of, when my daughter was born or when my daughter got married, then this is what we did. We went across, and 20 years ago. So it's not that the border it was before partition. No, after partition, this with India, Pakistan in 1971. If we know our history, even the most basic way. In 1971, this border was completely opened for 9 months during the Liberation War of Bangladesh. Every single family that lives along this, this agrarian border landscape will tell you a story of how, on the Bangladesh side, of how they fled to India or how they have relatives. They were sheltered in the relatives' house. That time was not a time was not a time for the breakdown of social relations. 71 was a time when people in border areas invested in social relations because that was their support system. They, families, communities, and this is, I'm talking about, Hindu, Muslim alike. North Bengal is predominantly Muslim and Rajbongshi. Southern Bengal is, again, border area for a different kind of historical reason, is predominantly on the Indian side, Muslim majority blocks, but also low caste Hindu communities. They invested in social relations. They made sure that they kept up their social, familial kin relations through marriage, through crossing the border to meet one another, right? So this fence infrastructure that we see, this dense presence of the BSF that we see, was not present in the India-Bangladesh border, even at the start of Mr. Sood and Mr. Singh's careers. Okay, so for the people to say, for border residents to say that where has this come, we've been in our lifetimes, we have been, crossing or keeping up with, wherever possible, keeping 2 SIMs or meeting to celebrate Eid together, or at least being present in important life events such as births or deaths of parents, weddings of siblings, visiting melas, across the border, or visiting a peer sthan, a religious site. Everybody has a lived memory of that. This present infrastructure really only started in Bengal from the early 90s. And that too, even this kind of density, the nature, the physical nature of the fence is very different now. And the density of the patrolling and soldiers is very, very new. So to expect that social ties will overnight disappear is kind of absurd. It's unrealistic. And what happens then, that from the point of view of the state, any cross-border movements of people or goods is illegal, is clandestine, right? So it paints all of these, which really have, all of these connections that people have, it makes them, paints with the same brush of criminalization. This is all as wrong, as illegal as the fentanyl smuggling or the ganja smuggling or the cattle smuggling, right? So border populations as a whole become this criminalized population. And that does so much damage in West Bengal and Assam to the kind of relations that security forces, the BSF and border populations are able to have. And that, I think, and I'll end on, stop here on that note, I think that is I think we should begin to recognize that as part of the security conversation when we talk about threats and what can we do to, it shouldn't be separated as that this is a human security issue uh, that we need to solve for the sake of border populations alone. But even for the BSF to be able to do their work, then carry out their mandate, they need better relations with border populations. And this, without paying attention to the social and economic aspects of life and interaction, I think we will continue to misdiagnose some of the problems that we have today. And I'll stop there and I look forward to more of a conversation and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ghosh. It's very interesting how you present a very people-centric approach to understanding border security, and how you mention that threats from border security differ from who you ask, depends on who you ask. It's very interesting, and thank you for the lovely insights. And if anybody has any questions, you can please feel free to switch on the mic and go ahead with the question. Any thoughts, any reflections, maybe? Yeah. Juniali?
Ma'am, first of all, thank you for your lovely presentation. Since you had talked a lot about human security and civil-military relationships, I'd say civil-military relationship, it has taken quite a hit. I mean, I guess only 2-3 years back, there was a very unfortunate incident where around 13 civilians in Nagaland were accidentally killed on suspicions of being insurgents. And then historically, there has been mutual suspicion between the Assam Rifles. They've always had a sort of a rocky relationship in Manipur, especially, and we are yet to see what the effects of militarization in Manipur, what the effects on the civil population is going to be. So my question is, as a researcher and as someone who has spent a lot of time at the grassroots level with local population, what would your recommendations be to sort of mend this relationship?
Dream question for an academic. If we had power, what would we do? Uh, um, so, many things. One, a couple things that I've mentioned already that I'll perhaps reiterate. One, I think at the moment, national security and people's welfare are somehow pitted against one another. It's as though we have to choose one over the other or give priority to one over the other. We have to reconceptualize that. That's no good. We've seen that's not serving us well. It's not and it's not serving national security concerns well. It's most certainly not serving people's welfare well, right? Because people end up feeling, and I've heard this so many times, constantly people will say in border areas that we are treated like second-class citizens. Our interests are secondary to national security. That need not be the case at all. So I think there needs to be some very deep, at a kind of deep level, reimagination of national security and people's welfare, not in opposition to one another. Okay, so that's one kind of more conceptual, big level. At a more pragmatic level, I think there's a lot that could be done, and I think some proposals just in the more than a decade to 15 years that I've been researching this border, I've seen many proposals be tried out, piloted, and abandoned. Okay, so I think efforts to there was this idea of a former I think additional director general of the BSF had was that of border huts in many of these to encourage more people to kind of ground level commerce and trade of the kind that there used to be before, to have border huts. And there are a few. I think there is one in Moreh, there's one in Tripura, but by and large that kind of proposal, which I think is excellent, fell by the wayside. Uh, to come up with ways in which we can facilitate more social, cross border mobility for social reasons. I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility to come up with policies or ways in which we can facilitate that, right? A more decentralized special permit or special pass sort of. I think that would go a very long way in addressing a big need and also cultivating goodwill. People will, people tell me, I've heard this so much in Bangladesh, especially. Mothers, sisters, and often these are women who are really invested in familial ties and kinship relations, that they'll say that, we're not criminals. We don't want to be viewed. If there was an easy way to cross and go to the village I want to go to, which is 15 kilometers in front of me, and they can literally point and tell you where it is, rather than go get my passport from, at least in Bangladesh, you can get a passport and visa in regional centers. You can't get a visa in that decentralized way in India. And then travel. So this is, these are very costly and difficult ways for ordinary people to undertake travel. And in a world where, we are globally and certainly in South Asia too, talking about connectivity and transnational connection. I think it's very possible to imagine and come up with more decentralized infrastructures for particular purposes. So there's lots of things we can do if we recognize some of these as needs to be addressed.
Anyone has any more questions?
Right. I have a comment more as a reinforcement for what Dr. Ghosh said. I quote her exact words: threat depends on who do you ask, and it shapes relations between people. I would add to that, it shapes relations not only between the security forces and the targeted population, but also within the hierarchy. So that is one important point she said. And the other thing is, what she said is that the infrastructure does not really ensure socio-economic development of the area. And she also said that the security, but the border security is more intrusive rather than being of help to the border population. Well, if we go by what the BSF law says, the rule 15 of BSF rules says that the border security force has 3 tasks. First being to inculcate a sense of security amongst the border population. So if we go by that, then our task is to sort of work for the welfare of border population so that they get integrated into the mainstream. However, the human frailties and our love for the statistics makes us focus more on projecting the data, projecting the data of the seizures that we have made, of the cattle that we have seized, of the criminals we have caught, of the and so on and so forth. I totally agree with what she says. That thank you, Dr. Ghosh, for putting it in so many words. I have always felt that the relations between the border security force in the manner in which it operates and the border population has always been adversarial, in spite of whatever our charter says. We have, to quote an instance, I was posted at academy and I was in a classroom where I said that our Jawans should be allowed to interact more with the locals so that they can collect information about what is happening. An officer stood up and said sir, that might lead to connivance. It perhaps can lead to connivance, that is all right. But then they should have, there are checks and balances to sort of detect those. But interacting with border population will lead to better confidence building and more support from the border population. Unless we integrate them in our efforts of border security, these words like community policing are much in favor these days. We also have our community development programs aimed at border population. We do all those, but then what we lack is at times in our personal behavior with them. A cattle smuggler for me is a cattle trader when we go to Bangladesh. I've attended so many conferences at Dhaka, and the very first question every time they come up, the journalists come up is, why does BSF kill cattle traders? Now, insofar as I am concerned, he's a smuggler. He's not a trader. But then it is the bread and butter of the local people, because the state has lagged in providing them adequate facilities to earn an honest living. So while security, military security, or security from military like threats is important, it is also important to integrate border population into enhancing the security. The population, the border population is the core, is the center of gravity of, should be the center of gravity of all our border management efforts. We are all there because the border population is there, because the border is there. If the borders were not there, there wouldn't be a need of any border security. Thank you for having brought this point out in so many words, Dr. Ghosh. Thank you so much. And the first point that you made was academic interface with the academicians. I'm really enriched by the manner in which you have projected your points, and I certainly agree that we should have more such interface between the professionals and the academicians, so that perspectives can grow, perspectives will develop, and it'll be for the betterment of the organization and betterment of the entire security scenario that prevails along the borders. Thank you.
Insights on the topic. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Mayank Singh, sir. He's a seasoned journalist with an illustrious career spanning over 18 years. He has been closely covering and writing on national security issues. His comprehensive coverage extends across all uniformed forces under the Union, Defense, and Home Ministries, offering valuable insights into governmental affairs. Currently holding the position of Senior Special Correspondent at the New Indian Express newspaper, Sir's expertise is fortified by previous stints in prominent TV channels, newspapers, and renowned publications like Force and an Asian News International, which is one of India's leading news agencies today. His assignments encompass extensive national and international ground visits, enriching his understanding of complex issues. Sir's scholarly pursuits are evident through his contribution to the book NJ 9842, The Siachen Saga, showcasing his academic approach. Beyond his journalistic endeavors, he generously imparts knowledge as a regular guest faculty at various security academies and colleges. Further, Sir expresses himself on X through his handle at Scribe Soldier. Mayank, sir, the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Radha. And it's such a pleasure, because when you actually listen to practitioners, the kind of insight it brings, or the kind of verbal explanations and the verbal pictures which come up, they resolve so many dilemmas, and that ambiguity which exists in your thinking may also improve further. And as Professor Sahana was saying, actually, I mean, these interactions, ground visits, and these two people like Mr. Ajay and Ajay Singh and Mr. Sanjeev Sood, they had been, I mean, deployed, posted for long along these borders. My uh, insight and observations as a journalist, they come because I keep traveling to these areas and covering, having the opportunity to cover national security, defense, and specifically armed forces and forces of both MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs and Ministry of Defense. You get to visit certain places which are actually no-go areas for lots of people. But by now, a stage interesting aspect has been brought out by Professor Ghosh, that there has to be an interaction, there has to be and civil military relationship, as she was talking. We have already listened about Myanmar border and Bangladesh border. So I'll be primarily touching on line of actual control, which is 1126 Arunachal, 220 Sikkim, that area. And this is regarding the threats, because threats in so many ways may not be visible, but the cost might be quite high. And to make you all understand what is that cost, I'll take you to Siachen. So the official figures say that almost 5 crore of rupees, Indian rupees, is spent in maintaining the soldiers. There's a brigade, 102 brigade, which is Patapur brigade, which handles the operations towards Siachen. And same happens from the Pakistan side. And it has been officially quoted that almost 5 crores of rupees is spent every day. Now, why have I brought this aspect? To make you all understand that these borders which are there, they cost. So national security has a major cost and implications, and there are so many aspects to it. If it is denser deployment, then the number of people along these borders is very high. There can be so many kinds of problems into those areas, which I'll explain further. But now let's come to 2020, May 2020. So we on 10th of May at around 12, I broke that story about Eastern Ladakh standoff. And since last 2-3 days, I was hearing from people that there's a huge movement that side, Eastern Ladakh. There was a huge movement. And then now we listen, and on which Army Chief has officially come out that billets, I mean the habitat, almost for 65,000 extra habitats have been built in only Eastern Ladakh. This word is very important, only Eastern Ladakh. 65, more than 65,000. Now, if it is a mirror deployment, there's a term called mirror deployment. If it is a mirror deployment, which means if other side is building 70,000 billets, habitats, India will also come up with 70,000 billets. And this is, I'm talking about only about 826 or 832 kilometers of LAC along Eastern Ladakh. Imagine, I brought out an example of Siachen Brigade, 5 crores every day, one brigade. And officially, we now talk of moving 2 divisions. One brigade has 3 units, roughly, on an average. Our division level force, these are formations actually. Unit is a smaller formation, brigade is a higher formation, and division is even higher, which has almost on an average 2 to 3 brigades. So if you see, there are 2 brigades already deployed along with a brigade which was already existing. I am expanding myself for the help of I believe lots of scholars are involved, so that these nitty gritties, they can pick up point by point. And those blanks are not there, because these discussions, these talks and seminars are only to help with filling those blanks, bringing out that ambiguity, clarifying those thoughts in your mind. That's why I'm getting so deeper, and precisely I'm talking about those things. So 10th of May 2020, you hear of a standoff with China, and then again listen to a term. So there was a precautionary deployment along 3,488 kilometers, as MHA says. So MHA says that the length of line of actual control with China is 3,488 kilometers. And if it is a precautionary deployment, listen to this. What is that precautionary deployment now? Along entire 3,488 kilometers. And we are talking of threats. We are not talking of threats which is manifested in terms of fight, scuffle. We are not talking. It is just staging the things now. Till now, it is all only staging the things. So precautionary deployment, I'll take you back to 1959. There's an officer called Lieutenant General S.P.P. Thorat. He was heading a division, and Central Command, Lucknow base, Central Command used to look after the entire line of actual control, 1959. So there was an exercise done, Lal Killa. You can all Google that. And he writes a book called Reveille to Retreat. I'll keep talking about books also, so that you can keep picking those things from those. And these are so that facts come out. So this officer, Lieutenant General S.P.P. Thorat, and lots of interesting aspects are involved with this officer. There's a fight, there's a standoff between the then defense minister, the army chief, and it is pre-all 1962. And we are talking of national security issues, threats in Eastern board. Thorat does a study of entire line of actual control and talks about 3-layered security. Now, precautionary deployment is about basing your troops into sensitive zones, passes, and low-lying areas. Do you know what is the average height of that line of actual control? If we start from eastern point, which is Kibithu area, the tri-junction between Myanmar, Tibet Autonomous Region, and India. Average height starts at 8,000 feet, which is high altitude. So national security threats, nobody did anything. People moved a body of troops to Eastern Ladakh, and your entire line of actual control is having precautionary deployment. And cost I talked about is 5 crores every day, which is official cost, given as an answer in Lok Sabha, in Parliament, every day. And that was 2019, I am talking. 2019. So let's come back again to 2020. May. When you start precautionary deployment, before I start explaining further, I have to make a comment. Often India is a very reactionary entity. It reacts. It doesn't preempt things. It reacts. What was the reaction? 2013, there was a approval given by the parliament for a strike corps. Strike corps is an element of troops which has high mobility, and in case of an aggression or war, they will be the first body of people to enter an enemy area, that is strike corps. And so to do so, they need to have a high mobility. That's why they are armed with high mobility vehicles, which are costly. So to create a strike corps, you can imagine the volume of money which is involved. After that, redeployments take place. Listen to this, costing. And we are talking of national security. Why am I bringing all these points is to make it amply clear there's a huge volume of cost involved. cost in the form of money, people, and equipment, which should have been diverted for social upheaval, for social causes, development, and economic bolstering. But herein, with a small movement of troops towards eastern Ladakh, a huge cost has been created to you, wherein huge chunk of money, capital cost, has been diverted from your budget, which is always a finite budget, for maintaining troops, creating infrastructure, and re-equipping your troops with a hardened position all along the line of actual control, which is not demarcated. Imagine the threat. So some people have strung you down smartly. Let me take you back to 2017 now. So I was traveling into those areas. We meet lots of senior officials there, and there was a proposal. You all will laugh or maybe smile at this. So there was a proposal in Yangtze area of which is almost 30 kilometers eastern side of Bumla. Bumla is a BPM meet hut. Border personal meeting takes place. There are 5 points. So 30 kilometers eastern side of it, there's an area called Yangtze. There was a talk of opening that area for religious movement. 3 streams, 400 meters inside LAC, and 2 caves, 200 meters on the other side of LAC, so that people will be allowed to move from both sides for religious reasons. Mompas stay on both sides. Is it difficult to now say that what happened to that file? Professor Sahana has brought out very important aspects on that. This is how things harden there. And I'm painting that picture, vulgar picture, so as to make you all understand that how that precautionary deployment has created a dense deployment of troops along that area. And everything is now being handled by MEA. Now let me take you back to 2019. 17, I took you to that file which was for movement of people, which could have been allowed. 2019, I was part of the border personnel meeting. I went to Bumla. The commanders both side, and there were lots of stories done that the local commanders have been empowered. They can initiate talks, they can resolve issues at the local level, and lots of meetings were taking place. The kind of bonhomie it had created was visible. The number of officials we were talking to were also quite optimistic. That yes, we often talk of things which are not even brought out to the higher level, and things are getting resolved. Do you think the same things are happening? Now what's happening? You're deploying very high cost equipments there. Somebody is deploying S300 and somebody is planning to deploy batteries of S400. You are reorienting your troops. So I talked of 2013, there was approval of creating a strike corps. Now there are 2 strike corps which are looking northern borders. Strike corps, which I said, it takes huge cost to maintain those men, equipment, body of troops, that formation which is called strike corps. So there are 2 strike corps now, which is looking northern borders. Let me introduce another term now. Border Defense Cooperation Agreement, 2013. And the other term which I want you all to mull over, think on, is salami slicing. And I've already said that India always reacts. We should be preempting things. 2013 Border Defense Cooperation Agreement has a line which says that we won't be touching the places which are inhabited by the local population. What does it mean now? Let me tell you a small story. So Tawang is the headquarter into that area. We are talking about eastern side only. Tawang is a district headquarter, which has got schools also, which has got roads also. But do you think places like Bumla, Yangtze, and all these have schools? They have doctors. So if a person falls ill, that person has to perforce travel to district headquarters to get medicine, to save his life, to get the children educated. So do you think those borders, those people since 1962, they must be staying there only? Or are we forcing them to stay there? People started trickling inside towards the headquarters. And there was nobody to claim those areas. And Border Defense Cooperation Agreement says that we won't be touching the areas which are locally inhabited. Here comes a infrastructure which China says is for settling down their people, the graziers. And these are villages, border integrated villages. So when in 2019 I was traveling, I was taken to a height in Kibithu to watch one such integrated village, and that story is there. That story is online there. I was with ANI then, and I was traveling. I was made to sit at a position from which I could visibly see that camp, which is called Tatu 2 camp. So Tatu 1 camp is hidden towards the hillside, and Tatu 1 camp is at the place where I was watching from. I could visibly see that village. So it was divided into two halves. The right half had lots of good pakka houses with flags, with roads and all. And the left half, it had huge 3-story administrative building with a staging area. And on the side of it, right side of that building, was a helicopter helipad. There was a small firing range, and there was also basketball court. So half of it was having people in the name of village, where they could herd the shepherds there. The aim is to collect intelligence from those people. And the other half was to maintain troops. So these could turn out, as officers say, these could turn out in case of any aggression or war as staging areas. And people can blame you if you have hit on civilian population. When Ajay sir was explaining your Northeast, I wished and I request him that he further talks about chicken snake area, because he has served into that zone also. It is also getting fortified. And by talking about all these things, I'm only bringing the cost element involved, the money which is being diverted into those areas, and the cost of weather on people, the men involved, sitting on those peaks, isolated peaks, on those heights, which often turns out to have whiteout. So there's a term called whiteout. You don't know what's happening around. Everything is white for you. It is interpreted differently by different people. It has got psychological effects of it. Now, let us come to a higher point, a higher aspect of it, of decision making. So the Corps Commanders meeting for, earlier it's called Senior Commanders meeting. So Corps Commander for the first time since 2020 were involved for talks between India and China. But do you think things are getting resolved even after involving your Corps Commanders? Things are not getting resolved. They are getting protracted, and the legacy the 2 points, which is Depsang and Damchok, have kept you hanging with an extra presence of MEA reps from both sides, with a thought that since the ministries of external affairs and defense and also MHA, because ITBP, which manages the borders along these areas, a rep from that force is also involved. They are also there. It is getting to me complicated every day. But do we have an example wherein we can quote and derive out a sort of a pattern or trend to it? Pakistan. So we at every at every interval we had wars with them, skirmishes with them. Isn't it happening with China also? 62, 67, 87, and then 2020. Are things improving? So what could be those elements, those signs of improvement if we can see? And in the time when dynamics, international dynamics is changing so fast, so quickly, that you are forming chords let me again bring out Cold War. The same America was arming China with high-tech technologies so as to balance with somebody. So whatever you see today is a trickle-down effect from that time. And with the hardening of positions along the line of actual control, and here, as per the topic, I'm talking only about 1126 Arunachal Pradesh, 220 kilometers of Sikkim. Tanks have been based there now. So if Arunachal is formed of 5 valleys, there was no connectivity. There was no mobility. So quick infrastructures are being developed, tunnels are being developed, only to ward off the threat which could be in making. Because military is a machine which is created to handle crisis which may take place and which may never take place. But you never take chances, and you always raise strong militaries. In case of civil military relationship, which is important because we need to expand on these points, Arunachal has been a lucky state, wherein integration of people with the military has been quite high. And one of the most simple example we often give is the people speaks Hindi so well. We need to also bring in Special Services Bureau formed after 1962, which played a very significant, very significant role in integrating these people, the people from the border areas. So we often visit right from Kibithu, Wolong, Helong to those areas to till Tawang, we meet people and we can see, because you have to observe faces to bring out the truth in whatever you write. And as a journalist, you are trained to observe people. People are really, they have been integrated well, because military has created lots of infrastructure in between, or because of military, lots of infrastructure have been created into those areas. So threats will always remain high. Ajay sir brought out in the point of Doklam. Doklam is a testing point. It was just testing something. And as the dynamics change internationally, things on ground will also change. So we will have to be prepared. And that preparation will be in the form of one of the most highly fortified zones and frontiers. I have to again leave a point here. I'm working on a book which is on Indian Frontier Administrative Service. Indian Frontier Administrative Service was created in 1954 by Jawaharlal Nehru with the people, with the nucleus of people who have already served in the government and had a knack of knack for adventures, and could have been posted into the border areas. Indian Frontier Administrative Service. Do we also need such service now? We'll have to think over those points. I'm ready for questions, and I think I was quite quick, and I have combined so many facts in between. Thanks for calling me, and it's a wonderful afternoon listening to such experts like Ajay sir, Sood sir, and Professor Sahana. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a very well researched, detailed presentation on border security along the LAC. I think it was very thought provoking and intriguing. And I think it will encourage future deliberations on the topic. Yes.
I have to leave name of a book.
Sure.
Do read this, and it is from a research scholar. Alice
Yes.
Albania wrote a book called Empires of Indus. Please read books. Please also read that book. And Jal Thorat, Reveille to Retreat. And there's another Protected Conflict by John Garver. These are important books.
Certainly, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much for the suggestions. If we have any questions, we could turn on the mics and go ahead with the question. Do we have any? Okay. I would really like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the esteemed panelists for taking out the time from your extremely demanding schedules and enlightening us with your knowledge and interesting perspectives on the topic. And as we proceed to the end of the session, I would like to call upon my colleague, Mr. Sujal Shah, to deliver the vote of thanks and call of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuradha. On behalf of all the point of from Borders and Region Corporation, a heartfelt gratitude to each of our esteemed guests. And this has been a thought-provoking discussion, and we are deeply indebted to your insightful contribution. To our distinguished speakers, your expertise and diverse perspective painted a comprehensive picture of the challenges and opportunities in the region. Each of you brought a unique lens to the discussion. For students and interns like many of us present here, this webinar has been an invaluable experience. Your nuanced analysis and practical approach have opened our eyes to intricate dynamics of the region. We now have a much deeper understanding of security concerns, geopolitics, and economic considerations of the border areas. Once again, thank you to all the speakers for being a part of this insightful discussion. We look forward to future opportunities to engage in such enriching dialogues on matters of national and regional importance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. And yeah, I think. Thank you. Sanjeev sir, would you like to say something? Your concluding remarks?
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for having actively participated in this webinar. Special thanks to the interns from Jindal University for a very excellent manner in which this has been organized. Special thanks to Anuradha for her articulation on the entire topic. If foreign service is your aim, go for it. You are absolutely fit for that. And Sujal, thank you so much for coordinating all the efforts. The Borderman think tank is organizing a seminar on national security dialogue on 6th of March in Delhi. So please do tell others about it. Ask them to register, and please come over and listen to many prominent speakers on subject of national security and border security. It should be a very enriching experience. Special thanks to Dr. Sahana Ghosh, who must have taken her valuable time out of her academic engagements. Thank you so much, Ajay. Thank you very much, Mayank. It has been an enriching experience, and hope we have more such professionals interfacing with academicians and other practitioners of other professions in enhancing our knowledge about the subject so that things can improve. The aim, after all, is to improve
Yes.
functioning of every organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mayank. Nice to see you.
It's a pleasure. And then nice to meet so many people. And Professor Sahara has brought out a very important point. In fact, South Asia University is also doing lots of things on border studies, actually.
Dr. Shahana met me twice at the board. My office also at border also. We met Dr. Shahana and North Bengal Frontier. I hope you remember.
Of course.
So just one last point. We would really like to connect with all the panelists on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn, kindly accept our request. We would
I'll create a LinkedIn profile for
Sure.
myself. I did not have till now. But I'm on Twitter because I like that medium.
Right.
So we can connect on that, but I'll definitely create LinkedIn. I find, it's must to be created.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.